What is something your parents have done unintentionally that hurt your feelings? My mum is an amazing cook, and every year for our birthdays she would cook all our favorite foods when we go to my parents for dinner. This year she made my brother's favorite fried chicken, his wife's favorite soup, my husband's favorite seafood, but me? Nothing. When I asked her what food was meant to be for me, she said she forgot it was my birthday. On my birthday, I went to my parents' house. No one was home. I called my dad. Hey, where are you guys at? Oh, we're at Longhorn having dinner with your brothers and their wives. Your birthday card is on the kitchen counter. Oh, okay. Sorry to bother you guys. My mum's got this funny little story from when she was pregnant with me. For 9 months she envisioned a tiny dainty baby girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, Elizabeth Grace. She was gonna dress me up in cute little outfits and I'd grow up to be a dancer or some crap. She ends the story with, and then I gave birth to a little gorilla. This ugly screaming thing covered in thick black hair. She points to me, didn't stop screaming till she was 6. Took her first steps into a mud puddle, ruining the beautiful dress she was wearing, and got kicked out of 2 ballet schools. Now she genuinely thinks this is a funny story, that I am the exact opposite of what she was hoping for, but I heard this story constantly when I was a child and it really fricked with my self-worth. Why did I get kicked out of 2 ballet schools? Because Elizabeth Grace was a ballerina and I freaking hated her. I only told mum a few years ago how much that story bothered me growing and she was shocked. She had no freaking idea. Haven't heard it since. My dad once told he doesn't care how I like my eggs. I like my eggs the same way he does. I can relate to the last sentence, but also, I can see how hard it would be to make eggs differently if you're making a lot. Before I had my kids and shortly after my younger sister had hers, my mom casually mentioned one day that she'd made some changes to her will and that basically all of her life insurance policy and everything else she owned would be going to my sister since she has a family now. Not a big deal really. I'm not one of those people that hawks at their dead relatives' possessions. It's just the implication that just because someone had a kid they were now more important to her, and that really stung. We had a small fire in the house. My stepdad woke my mum up, who proceeded to go up to the 3rd floor and wake my brother up, came down the stairs to wake my other brother up, and then went upstairs again to check that the first brother was getting up. Never tried to wake me up. I remember waking up, thinking everyone was just getting up for work and school, so ignored the voices and dozed off again. It was only when I realized that it was still dark that I figured something must be wrong. Not once did she check on me or knock on my door. Everyone was fine and the fire was dealt with, but it still hurts now that she never even considered me when the fire was spreading. What the frick? That's actually pretty messed up. 6-year-old me came home to 2 very slow cooked guinea pigs. They had been left out in the sun without their little box and their pen's plastic roof had acted as a sort of magnifying glass. Thanks Dad. The same exact thing happened to me on Memorial Day when I was like 9 or 10, but my dad completely didn't mean to. He had put them out in the shade on a nice day to get them some fresh air. Then the sun moved. My poor father, those poor guinea pigs. For my 16th birthday, they clearly grabbed stuff while they were at Sam's Club. I got a pack of construction paper and a CD tower. I didn't have any CDs, so my dad kept that. I knew I wasn't getting a car or anything extravagant, but I had been hoping for something that didn't scream "we forgot to buy you something" until we went grocery shopping. Then they got pretty upset with me for being mad that they didn't even try. I remember there was a time in my life when I was around like 15 years old and I was trying to open up to my mom about being depressed and slightly suicidal, hoping that I could get some help. I'm the middle of 3 children and both my siblings were already going to see psychiatrists, so I knew I was asking a lot. I still remember sitting on the kitchen floor, my mom stirring a pot on the stove, turning to me and saying, "Can't I at least just have one normal child?" I never brought it up again, and years later she wondered why I never told her about my issues and about wanting to commit suicide. Comparing me with other more capable individuals, my mom would always say to me, "Look at XX. He got an A for his math. Why can't you get better than him?" or something like that. And they wonder why I was so distant and bitter during my teenage years. Also, not recognizing my efforts. "Oh, you got number 6 in that math competition? Try to get better next time." This messed up my confidence down the line and a major reason why I didn't really tell people anything about myself. I just couldn't handle the rejection. But as I grew up I kinda understood why my parents were the way they were. They weren't show love and recognition from their parents as well, so it's hard for them, also me, to show love and recognition to others as well. Also might be interesting to mention, I'm Chinese. In high school I got really into writing. I'd always enjoyed it but I really began to commit when I was around 15. I was writing a lot and doing my best to learn about the craft to try and get better. As an exercise I decided to try doing NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. Takes place in November and you try to write 50k in 1 month. I managed to complete it and had never been so excited about anything before. I'm notoriously bad at seeing things through to the end. I tend to give up halfway. Nope. I was staring at a 50k word count on the last day. I was so excited I ran out into the living room and told my parents, basically jumping up and down. My mom looked at me and asked me why would you even do that. I explained and she followed up with what a waste of time. My dad then chimed in saying I should never do that again. What a massive waste of time and energy. So that pretty much crushed my young dreams. I reverted back to my room and barely wrote much for the next couple years. Not entirely because of their comments, but they definitely played a part. This month, 6 years later, I've done Camp NaNoWriMo and I'm on track to hit 50k once again. I'm very excited about it but don't plan on mentioning it to my parents ever. If it were me, I'd probably mention it again just to stick it to them. But I guess I'm also sort of a dong, so there's that. My mom would coax me to confess by saying she wouldn't be upset and get pee when I told her the truth. Learned not to trust people. Oh, that's a classic. When my mom didn't like the dress I was going to wear to homecoming, she told me that people were only nice to my face and that they all thought my clothes were ugly. She said they were all making fun of me behind my back. My dad got drunk at a family friend's house one day and told their daughter that she was his real daughter because he couldn't handle how much of a disappointment I was. He didn't realize I had come downstairs. It is pretty sad, so I'd just like to say that my dad and I have come a long way since then and he actually is a wonderful person. It pisses me off how my parents are never consistent with what they expect of me but then get pee at me the moment I stray from their constantly shifting expectations. Same here, it is really annoying. Not my parents but my grandma. She seemingly can't check who's sending a text to, so I've gotten multiple texts meant for someone else where she talks trash about me. I do everything she wants so she never has to leave the house and still has the nerve to talk trash. I am not doing things for her as it's not a viable option. I've tried to tell her I wasn't doing anything for her anymore and she reacted like I'd threatened to kill one of her children. Saying no makes my like 1000x worse than just doing it. Block grandma. It's for the best. I used to have a personality and a life before I had kids. Wow, you got fat. You're a disappointment. You too, meaning me and my wife, need to sort your lives out. Thanks ma. I'll speak to you again in another 4 years I guess. When I was a kid of 5-6 my mom picked me up from preschool. We walked home through the park and I said something along the lines, "I love you mom." Her reply was, "I'm not your mother, I'm a monster who ate your mom and turned into her." When I protested she made up the entire story how first she ate our dog, got in a house as it, ate my father, turned into him, waited for my mom and ate her after, and now she is taking me back home to kill and eat me too. I had the whole on meltdown I still remember. On the other hand my mom was way too young and I was her first. She refuses to acknowledge this ever happened but I remember. It fricked my up good. My mother often does something similar. Now I find it kinda funny, but when I was a child it always scared the crap out of me. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I grew up to be so paranoid. LOL. When I was in middle school, some military recruiters came and talked to our school, I guess to convince us to join when we were old enough. I got excited and told my mom that that was what I wanted to do when I grew up, but she laughed at me and said she couldn't picture me making it through boot camp. I know she didn't mean to be mean but it definitely hurt my feelings. Did you make it though boot camp? I used to live 2 hours away from them and my mom called to say happy birthday because they were literally 4 minutes away from my house when she called. I thought how nice. They were going to surprise me for my birthday. Nope. They were just calling to wish me a happy birthday but weren't stopping by because we didn't come down to see you. We're going to Aunt Linda's, my dad's sister, My dad lovingly refers to my brother as son and he always gets my name wrong on the first attempt. He calls me by my sister or niece's names. I grew up with a Siamese cat that we got when I was 5. When I was 18 and a senior in high school, he developed feline leukemia and was terminally ill. At school one day, one of my classmates mentioned that she was sorry to hear about my cat being put to sleep. My brother had told her. I went home and confronted my parents, who told me that they had him put to sleep 3 days ago. They just didn't bother to tell me. My parents and I didn't communicate well when I was a teenager. We are not close. Whenever I mention that I feel extremely depressed and or suicidal, my mother tries to make it about her. You are so selfish. What about me? I thought I was a good mother. She will also try to guilt trip me for feeling awful, even threaten to cancel our plans of going out and even holidays, as if that will somehow make me feel so much freaking better. It's as if I somehow gave myself this freaked up brain. And mum wonders why I wanna freaking die. She directly contributes to me feeling like crap and sees me as the bad guy instead to being supportive. Earlier this year I was accepted in PA school and I put the letter of acceptance up on the fridge. When they got home from work, they say it and said, "Why did you hang this up on the fridge?" Congratulations. This is a huge accomplishment. My brother just started PA school and I know how difficult it can be to get into a program. Good luck on your journey. When I was 13 or so I was starting to get a little chubby and I was sensitive about my weight. We were debating between 2 different restaurants and I voted against Italian, but got outvoted by the rest of the family. When asked if we wanted a table or both, my dad said to hostess a table would be better. He's a big guy and patted me on my shoulder. I was really upset and stormed out of the restaurant and to this day my dad denies saying that and my mom believes that I was just throwing a tantrum over going to the restaurant that I didn't like. Feeling you here. I hate when you tell someone the reason why you were upset and they just deny it and blame it on something else. Like, no, I know why you were mad much better than you do. 1. When I was suicidal at 13ish, I finally told my mom while crying my eyes out. She told me I was making an excuse not to do the laundry. 2. During one of our daily arguments at 14, she told me I'd end up just like her, meaning pregnant at 16, 3 kids by 21, and I hadn't even had a real boyfriend yet. 3. I'd already had my prom dress picked out online, but she made me go dress shopping with her and my sister. They told me the only way I'd look like I hadn't what was if I wore a mermaid style dress, which I hate, and picked on me when I cried. 4. Got mad at me when I was barely 17 and couldn't get a hold of her. Told me it was none of my business where she was and I got it out of her that she was breaking an important promise to me. I'm writing these all here because my mom likely has borderline personality disorder and I was the target child for that. Also, I personally think she was clinically depressed most of my life and just never got treatment. I'm 22 now and still somewhat scarred, but she tries to make up for it by being more active positively in my life, so I don't think she ever meant to hurt me so much. The summer after high school, my depression hit hard and I gained about 30 pounds over 3 months. I was pretty sensitive about it because I'd been so slim and fit my whole life and now I just felt like a big lazy tub of goo. One day, I was making a ham sandwich and took it over to eat on the couch, next to my dad. I sit down and he looks right at me and says, "You know if you eat that, it's cannibalism." My heart just dropped. I excused myself to the bathroom and just sat there on the toilet, ugly crying, for about 5 minutes. I got myself together, went back out and threw the sandwich away. I know he meant it to be funny but, ouch. My brother used to make similar jokes at me. I've also always been very small and fit, but that never stopped him. It varied from calling me a little piggy while I'm making food in the kitchen to giving me the nastiest stares at the kitchen table like I was some kind of disgusting monster. I'm still working through my issues of eating in front of people to this day. My mother walked in on me cutting myself at the age of 13. I asked for a therapist and the first thing she said was how long she'd have to drive. Then she began talking about everyone else except me and how I have it easy. I gave in and said that I didn't need a therapist and that I was fine. But after I had the worst panic attack of my life, I realized that I couldn't handle it. I asked for therapy again and she finally agreed. About 2 months passed and I still had nothing. I had given up on her and went to my sister, crying and saying that I couldn't take it anymore. After my sister scolded my mother and lectured her about ignorance and responsibility, she finally gave me one. Also, she was always so emotional and would always lash out at me. If she was tired, it suddenly became my fault and she would scream and cry at the smallest things. The worst part was I would blame myself too. My sister also stood up for me for this and that was when I realized that I wasn't wrong at all. Now I have issues figuring out who's in the wrong and not knowing if I'm blaming myself unreasonably or if I'm actually at fault. Then there was my dad. He was abusive, but there were small things he did that really hurt. He didn't know my birthday, how old I was or even my name. He would always call me by my sister's name and wouldn't correct himself. My sister awesome she'd out if it weren't for her. I would have committed suicide on many occasions. She's my savior and the most amazing person I know. However, it's not all rainbows and sunshine for her and I feel like I need to tell people the downside of early maturity. Unfortunately, she had to stand in as an adult from a very young age because my parents were incompetent. She never said anything about this until the age of 18 where she started crying asking why she had to be the adult and why she and I have to deal with consequences of their actions. She said that neither of us should have had to hear their constant fighting and that we should be able to be the children we're supposed to be. She never got the chance to be a child and has endured more abuse than I have. These days, despite me being 4 years younger, she likes to act like my child and I act like her mother. The only way for me to repay her is to let her experience the blessing of innocence and how life can be with affection. We're all each other have and it seems like we're all each other need. Sorry you had to go through that. Don't get how someone could treat their child like this. Your sister's freaking awesome though. On my mom's birthday I was broke, so instead of buying her a gift I helped my sister pick her out something I thought she would like and told mom I was sorry I couldn't do more. A few days later she messaged me and jokingly said something about how I didn't love her as much as my sister did because I didn't get her anything. She was surprised when I got upset. My mother does this a lot. One time when I was about 5 I was singing in the car in what I thought was a beautiful opera voice with no inhibition. My mom said I sounded silly. I was embarrassed to sing in front of my parents for the next 15 years or so. 2. This one happened last week. My dad and I were watching old home videos and one of my old dance recitals was on there from when I was 6. My dad chuckled and said dancing was never my forte and expected me to be like I know, right, but really my feelings were super hurt because I had actually spent my entire childhood and adolescence as a dancer. I get really bad anxiety attacks in public and sometimes my mom will give an annoyed sigh and say something like, why can't you just do this? I know she doesn't mean it, but it really affects me. It only happens sometimes when she's having a rough time though, so I don't let it affect me that much. I love feeling this way, Mom. It's my favorite. You know I only do it to embarrass you. Whenever my mother compares me to my older sister, I already feel like I'm uglier than her and hate how I look. My mother always says things like your sister would like that, she has the body for that dress. This reminds me of her when we're shopping. I feel like nothing is mine because as a child I of course tried to be like my older sister and got her old clothes etc. Like I'm a bad copy of her. From my dad's side, when my daughter was 5 or so I told her to go get dressed up as pretty as she could for our date. She came back wearing a pink tutu. There was nothing wrong with it, but for some reason I felt embarrassed and asked her to go dress up seriously, and that's more for fun. The look on her face was pretty heartbreaking, but she quickly ran off to change and I didn't read into it enough at the moment. She got dressed up in normal clothes and we had a great night out at the movies and some food. And I'm not sure if she ever thought about it again, but it fully hit me later that she had dressed up to what she thought was the absolute prettiest, and I just told her to act serious. I missed a big one there and I still feel like crap when I think back to it. We all freak up and say the wrong things sometimes and don't see things from our children's perspective maybe until after something like that is said. At least you recognize it and weren't being uncaring or purposely hurtful, and you were still thinking of her feelings after. That's what's important. 1. Every time I ate something fast food before I went on dieting, my mom would say that I'm getting fat. 2. Every time I made a B+ and I show it to my father, he asks why you didn't make an A. 3. Every freaking time I smiled at my mom she would pinpoint and check my freaking teeth and say that I'm not brushing enough. While they thought this was building me up and making me wanna do more, it was actually hitting me hard every single time I turn around. I never got over it and honestly, I just didn't give a flying frick what people thought of me. However, this doesn't mean for you to not care about your body. It means for you to do the said things without having mom or dad to pretty much pick you apart. Except the eating. Leave people and their food alone. There are a lot of people with horrible family members who pick and prod at them. I'm happy and sad at the same time. I'm happy because my family's troubles aren't just this one thing that happens to me. I'm sad because of frick man, who the heck does this to their kids? Well, I hope we all learn and teach the new generation that raising a child is more on the boundaries of teaching them how to be better in a concise and more tactful advantage, and while supporting and complimenting them. My senior year in high school, I made the all-state symphonic band for bass clarinet. I told my parents and they said my younger brother has a middle school football game the day of the recital and they might not make it. I thought nothing of it, thinking at least my mom or one of my grandparents would show up since they enjoy music. Nope. The day of the recital we performed. Afterwards I looked for a relative after I changed out of my tux and packed my instrument away. No one was there. I rode with my band direct on a 3-hour trip back to town and it was an enjoyable ride. But as my last performance in high school before I became a nobody in college again, it hurt me a lot. I never fully recovered from it and it left me in a bit of a depression all the way up till I dropped out of college, and I even still get angry at it now. In the absolute height of my depression, a full-grown man sobbing and breaking down, my mother told me to grow up and get over it. Absolutely destroyed me. My mum had always been the emotional one who understood, my dad the complete opposite. Yet at this moment it was my dad comforting me. I don't think she'll ever understand how she broke something that day she could never fix. My dad died a year and a half ago, and even though we were kinda prepared for it to happen soon, we didn't realize how soon. My brother came home to visit soon before and he told him how proud he was of him and where he was in life. He told my sister he was proud of her and her husband. I like to think that he was proud of me too and just never got around to officially tell me before he died. Don't get me wrong, my dad was awesome and always showed that he loved me, and I'm sure he told me at one point or another, but it was like I was left out and it hurts a little to not know for sure. When I told my mom about a new job opportunity and her response was, "Sigh, why do you want to waste your time?" Well, she was right. No point in having that conversation as she was gonna act like that. My dad once told me I would never sing as good as my mother. I didn't know we were in a competition. I just enjoyed singing. I was 8 at the time and never really sang much after that. My mom and I picked my dad up from the golf course with his friends because he had one too many to drive home himself. I was telling a story about my day, definitely rambling, and he interrupted to ask my mom, "Sheesh, does anyone even care about this?" My mom was quick to snip, "Yes." Still made me go quiet. Being annoying is a pretty big insecurity when you're a 16-year-old girl. I was the oldest child living at the house. During Christmas as a teen I would get maybe 2 pairs of jeans, a shirt, socks, toothbrush. My younger siblings would get so much stuff. I mean, it would take them literally at least 20 minutes to open up all their presents. We were not poor. My parents made about $90,000 a year. They'd got the newest phones. I had to buy my own phone, my own car, my own insurance. I mean, they were getting electric bikes, guns, season passes to the amusement parks. I was thankful for my gifts. I love clothes and all. However, it kinda hurt seeing them getting so many things and I got maybe 3 or 4. This Christmas they are getting 2 of my brothers a car because they have been working so hard for one. It is what it is though. I'm a twin, so they sometimes but just one thing and have us share. Like I know I'm identical, but we are two different ppl. I sent to my family's WhatsApp group a picture of my son in his class. My sister said, yes, the handsomest kid in his class. My mom said, but his cousin is handsomer. My nephew doesn't go to my son's class. I still don't understand what she meant, even though I asked her for explanations. It's sad that she keeps comparing them. Just a couple weeks ago I was doing a big 14-hour hike with my sister and husband in Colorado. I've worked my butt off to get ready for this hike. Literally, I've been working out 2x a day, training, changing my eating habits, just working super hard. We tried it last year and didn't quite make it, so we were determined to make it to the summit this year. My father was with us the day before scoping out the trail. We were joking as we went back to the car, saying, so can we make it dead serious? He shook his head and said, I don't think you should get your hopes up. It'll be a stretch. Instant deflated balloon feeling. I've been working so hard, and for him to have no faith was just gut-wrenching. We sent him a text from the summit the next day saying it'll be a stretch. My butt told me I was an accident. It wasn't said in a malicious way. They were just telling a story, which was quite funny to be honest. But then when I looked back after I was born at the family albums, I could see that the happiness had gone from the family. No more smiles in the pictures, just straight faces. And after I was born there are just blank pages, no more holiday photos or family photos. Sucks to think I spoiled a happy family just by being born. Do not blame yourself. It's not your fault you were born. If they're unhappy because they had you, then that's their problem. Always remember that. When I was like 13 I wanted to start working out, watch my weight. So I started counting calories and stuff. So I'd have to measure things out to know my proportions and all. Well, I remember my mom always being annoyed that I was dirtying those measuring cups. So I decided I would always clean them out when I was done. But it still always seemed to bother her. Like I was just being pretentious or something. It really turned me off to exercising. I divorced my ex-wife of 8 years and my parents are super religious. They think that I broke God's law. So now they are helping my ex-wife keep my kids from me. She got the house, the cars, the kids, the dogs, and everything in the house. Now I almost have a complete dining set again and they are paying her attorney fees to make it impossible for me to see the kids. Religion makes some great folks. I'm so sorry. My mom would comment on everything I ate starting from when I was 8 years old. Ended up anorexic, then bulimic. Then it turned into her calling me fat as I was growing up. I wasn't. Then in college I was finally at a healthy weight. Came home for holiday and she yelled at me for having a snack. Cheese and crackers. Most recently she calls me and starts going off on how I'm obese and no one my age should weigh what I weigh. That my boyfriend is going to leave me and that the salads aren't working. Yeah, she's fun. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.